Hi, welcome, Dolores.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So for people who are just joining us, we are working through, we had an introduction, a webinar with a lot of different experts on menopause. And now this is one of our individual podcasts where we're going to get to spend a little bit of time with Dolores and to dive deep into her perspective on menopause, her experience of menopause, and some tips that she has. Dolores, this is Dolores Gordon. She actually lives in France, so she's joining us from France today. So we have a whole international panel. She is a nurse, but also a holistic chef. And I'm going to ask her to tell us about her story because it's kind of interesting. So thank you, Dolores.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Yeah, I suppose we're all unique, aren't we? And when my story started, my story started almost 60 years ago. Anyway, 2009 is the current part that we want to talk about. I got a diagnosis of breast cancer in the month of April, and thank God I live in France. The month of May, I got operated on for a tiny tumor in my breast. And then in order to treat the cancer, the type of cancer that it was, I was supposed to start hormonal therapy. And before they do hormonal therapy here or chemotherapy, they check out other endocrine glands, shall we say. And so basically they checked my uterus to see, did I have any signs of any sort of a cancer in my uterus? I had a tiny little thing which hadn't even, it just was in the beginning. And so if one was feeling very optimistic, could say that the breast cancer created that I had a radical hysterectomy and ovaries out as well, because the tiny cancer might have been a lot more installed in situ, as they say medically, than it was, because I got it so early. It was just tiny and there was no treatment, just radical hysterectomy. And then I started the hormone and the chemotherapy for the breast cancer. And I remember very well the surgeon, when after I had the hysterectomy, that was in the month of September in the same year. And there was the following day. So I had my day of my operation, one day at hospital, and then the next day I wanted out of there. Food was terrible. Anyway, blah. I wanted out of the hospital. And so there was no reason for me not to go, because I was, not on very much treatment, and all of that can be arranged. They do a lot in France to keep people at home and to get them at home. So he wasn't against me leaving, but what he was very strict with me about, and so much so that it kind of shocked me. He said, you are going to have 6 months of ups and downs and 6 months of weirdness in your body. Just be prepared. And very kind of almost aggressive, but he wasn't being aggressive. For the information to register so solidly with me, I think he had to break through my automaticnesses, which is like, hi, everything's good, and just want to go home. Pardon?
I can cope. It'll be all grand.
Yes, that's it. It'll be fine. So very smart of him to actually have done that, and I've kind of gone back to it a few times in my own mind. So here he is, a man of probably the same age as me, probably a bit older than me actually, and he was very clear. Just be careful. Don't think this is nothing. It's a big deal, and it's not that it's the shock menopause. You see, I don't want to talk about it as in it was a big deal, which it was, but not to make people scared. Because the way I did it was I started reading everything about cancer and about cancer treatment, and then menopause, because I was in menopause overnight. And I think that some of my symptoms were created by myself, by my panic, because I was just I made it all so much worse in here. So my worst enemy was myself, in a way, that I kept that I kept reading about things. And it almost was, I drove myself mad is what I want to say, but maybe I just don't want some other people to make the same mistake I did, which is why I'm going on about it. Number one, don't panic. Number two, you'll get used to it. And reading stuff on the internet, I went down a rabbit hole big time for, I would say, a year, more than a year, between a year and 2 years. I was terrified. It was more the cancer diagnosis than the menopause. And having the two of them together, having the breast cancer in the month of May and the hysterectomy in the month of September, I was quite insane. And looking back now, it would have been really smart if it had some psychotherapy, or not psychotherapy, counseling, something to helped me to express it in a way that now I'm getting to see that it's possible. It doesn't have to be that way. If I knew or even deemed to reach out to anybody and talk about it like a therapist of some sort, it would have been a smart thing to do. And at the time, as has continued, I was doing acupuncture about every 6 to 8 weeks, like between four and 6 times a year. No, that's right, between 6 and 8 times a year, approximately, just as a general equilibrium. I'm quite, I like that. And then for years, I was going like every month, so religiously, and I found that helped me a lot with the side effects, particularly the sleep side effect, or the lack of sleep side effect, we should say. And so that is, for me, that really helped a lot when I began to know that there was things that could treat my symptoms. And like I said, my symptoms were out there because I think I made them worse. So a hot flush would come on and I would go, oh my God, I'm going to die. Oh my God. And I made it into a worse drama by the way I talked about it, self-talk inside to myself. I think I drove myself nuts, put it that way.
Can I because it's a very natural reaction, I would think, to come into overwhelm, because we can come into overwhelm even with less extreme things than getting a cancer diagnosis and a cancer treatment, because obviously you also had the treatment. It was it's very successful in that sense.
Yeah.
So it strikes me that because some people that are listening to this may be in that overwhelm at the minute. So to know, to 100% stress, increasing stress will exaggerate all of our symptoms 100%. And I suppose one of the questions I have is, so it's not, if someone does feel that they're in that stage now, that they're in total overwhelm and that they are addicted to finding out more, because that's what feels like at the time. I suspect it felt like that's what was empowering you to get more information.
I felt it was like wanting to be in control, having some, it was like everything was out of control.
Yes. And if you have this information control, that's a really good word. I love that. And so that's what we think, because we're so head bound to support ourselves, to get back into control, to have the information, to be able to make decisions, to be able to know what to do. So I can't imagine it's very easy for someone to switch from that into surrendering, into acceptance, into unwinding a little bit, so that, I mean, you talk about being able to now deal with symptoms without making them worse by being in that overwhelm. What for you, how was that transition possible? Because that sounds like quite a letting go of that control, surrendering. That's quite a challenge, I would suspect.
Well, Laura, it's very sweet of you to say, or to even imply that I'm handling well my symptoms now. I think my personality is such that I drive myself nuts no matter what. Anyway, to the point I think is very relevant, which is what I'm getting to now, is that it's useful to have some. See, for me, it's if I have somebody I trust. I had my acupuncturist. I trusted her for years. Had my GP, trusted her for years, and so. See, my GP is also an acupuncturist, and at the time she was doing homeopathy. So I do have my own, and I did have my own way of going about it. And I think that everybody is going to have their own way of going about it. And I think that which is what I really appreciate about you putting on these podcasts, is that it's really wonderful for people to know that they're not alone, that I'm not the first one to go through this. We're not reinventing the wheel, and it's okay to talk about it. Like, for me, I mean, because of the age I'm in, there's a lot of my friends who have already been through the menopause. And for some women, it was not a big deal at all, Laura. Shock menopause is a bit different, it's a bit more shocking, obviously. And some of the women I know here, it's like they were like, oh yeah, did that, done, finished. And for other women, it is life-changing point, in a way, or a life enhancing point. I mean, I see for me though, a lot of it was like I was negative about this change. And so to answer your question about how did I change, I don't know that I have changed, love, number one. And number two is I can see that where I was at was negative and fear based, and that when I'm feeling more, because it's like it's a balance, isn't it, to stay on the line between, driving too fast. There's so many things that get me off the road, or that I create to push myself off my road, shall we say. And it's like there's a balance between being too much into diet and anti-inflammatory this and taking all these medical pills, or not medical pills, her supplements.
Supplements.
You can go way into that sort of thing. Been there, done it. And then the other side of not doing anything and eating my burger and chips every day. Haven't done that, but I do have my burger and chips, and I don't actually have any guilt about it anymore. And this is a fine line. And I think that the only person that can help me to meander my fine line is myself, and chiefly through the people that I talk to. I am my company, and I get to see that it's the people. That's what my granddad, not my granddad, my father used to say was, you are your company. And so if I hang out in caca, caca sticks to me. If I hang out in bliss and light, then some of it rubs off on me, God willing. It's like, so I do feel that my sense of responsibility, even though my pendulum swung way over, there is a balance in there, something. And I very much appreciate a lot that I learned while my pendulum was way out, left wing or right wing, whatever, way off. Does that in any way answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, from say a yoga perspective, or even from my perspective, a lot of the work that we do, which you talk about having a good network of support around you, that is in mindset, a mindset that works with you. For me, meditation comes to mind as something like a practice. So you're talking about the acupuncture, but equally some personal practice that you have long before you're in a crisis situation. So you have that like resource, that inner resource that it's going to be okay. And that support network. I mean, I think that's really cool in terms of, regardless of whether someone is like, if someone who's watching this now is in shock menopause at the moment, then you're looking to use this that's already in place. But equally, if you're just in your 30s and happen to be curious, it's a really good time to put these systems in place for yourself, so that regardless of what the bumps are on the road, because we're all going to have bumps, they may be different bumps, but these same tools, these same inner resources, exactly, will support us. And I love that description of going way off in one direction or way off in the other direction and then coming back, because that is I completely agree. That's what we're looking to do, is to
get a balance.
to somehow. And I really honor how you can talk about, because on the webinar you talked about not buying winter shoes for 2 years, and you talked about being only at a stage in your life where you're thinking about having children. So like, this was quite an extreme. I mean, apart from the symptoms of menopause, apart from the fear around cancer, the actual then changes to your life at that time were very shocking. So to see to see how you can be knocked off, how you can be hit with this kind of articulated learning, and that you can then come back and then now have this wonderful perspective on how much you learned when you went down the rabbit hole, and yet supporting other people not go down that rabbit hole, and yet go enough to have information, but not so far that they're stressing, that it's counterproductive.
And one thing comes into my mind is, I think that a lot of the people listening might be surprised at how much support they've already got in their lives around them, that we don't realize that it's there. Like for me, my husband, I mean, the man is an angel. I think he puts up with me. I used to say when I was in the heavy duty menopause symptoms, it was like sleeping with a sunbed. It was like, and of course I would throw off the clothes off me. It was like, oh my God. And then get cold, get the shivers, and then the clothes back on me. And then in the middle of the night asking him, are you awake? And he would say, I am now. And I mean, it's very cute, and I wouldn't be surprised if people don't realize what is already in their lives that they are doing, and that they're nurturing. And for me, partners, like, how in God's name do I do life without him? How did I manage before? I mean, it's like, I've got all these questions myself about it. And I think that, you know, people have that. It's like somebody outside the school, you know, mums, they get in chat,
Hmm.
and there's so much support in just having a chat, having a cup of coffee with someone. It doesn't have to be something radical. Like I went way, like I said, off charts, and, you know, and went to all sorts of different types of, and they call them magnétiseurs here in France, which is like a faith healer type person. I learned so much. And like I learned, get to see, if you go to see one type of faith healer, this is what's wrong with you, and they treat you for that one. You go to see a different one, this is what's wrong with you. And I filled my mind with a lot of different, um, what's the word I want to say, you know, little caverns in my pendulum. There was the pendulum was swung, and then there was all these little nuances all around. It's like bubbles in it, and which is great, a lot of learning. And I don't think that people need to generally do that. You know, I love your thing about having the yoga, and for me, it's been acupuncture, and now I've got Pilates. And a little point about that is I would not be so addicted to Pilates if I hadn't had the what's the word, stress menopause, or whatever it's called, fast menopause,
Hmm.
whatever the thing I've got
Hmm.
is called. um I would not be so addicted, because the Pilates is a meditation, the Pilates is a joint support, is a strength enhancer. It's got a lot of qualities, but I don't think, I'm not the type of person that does a regular practice. I wouldn't sit down and meditate for 10 minutes a day. You know, I've tried, God forgive me, but I, you know, it's not where I'm at. However, my Pilates is my meditation. I cannot think about how to move my left foot. Like you, it'll be the same with yoga. It's like I cannot, there's no space in my brain for moving my body and thinking at the same time. So it's a real clean cut between my, you know, well, for me, in my case, insane reality and a perspective. Though I walk in one particular place and I walk out in a different space, because I've had meditation for 45 minutes.
Hmm. And physical movement, joint
Yeah.
support. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be the same with yoga. I mean, you know, everyone's got their own particular addictions. And some women, it's just going walking. I've seen my friends here and they walk. They just walk, walk, walk. They might do 10 kilometers a day. Different strokes for different folks. And yeah, it's good. Sorry, I'm just worried that I'm going off subject.
Um, whatever it is that really lights you up or keeps you going or keeps you sane, whatever way we might call it, keeping us sane in the beginning, but in reality, it's what feeds us and nurtures us. Yeah.
Completely. Completely. Yeah.
Being in nature, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Swimming for some people.
A few little things there, just I just wrote them down, but for like the hot sweats, one thing
Hmm.
that I learned was amazing, and I still do it, is I sleep with my feet outside the bed covers. And there is something about it that keeps my feet cool. I guess don't, well, actually, I haven't had what the hot sweats. I do still get a little bit of a something every now and then, but it's a whole different thing. Whereas for me, I would always wear socks in bed. With the menopause, the shock menopause, I stopped wearing socks in bed. It took me a while to realize this, and then have my feet out. So I've got the quilt cover over me, and my feet are sticking out at the bottom. It's very cute. Yeah, and for the hot sweats, I mean, there's so many potions and lotions and everything in these health food stores, and I don't know that any of them work or don't work. It's like I can see that the HRT works. I can't have HRT in initially for years I was so against it. I was really like, homeopathy is the way to go, and this is the way to go. And I am not so negative about it anymore, because I see the benefit that it has given to friends around me. So I'm not, I don't know if that's relevant either. Then the other one, yeah, the joint pain. I want to talk about the joint pain, which is one thing. It's about why do I create the joint pain in my shock menopause situation? And for a person with a normal, as if anything is normal, but a person with a normal menopause, um, I know that they do get joint pain, and that they do talk a lot about inflammation and food, and not eating gluten, not eating dairy, no alcohol, no coffee. There's so many rules that, of course, I've read about on the internet, and I don't remember them all now. I don't remember any of them except those four. There's things that we can do that can work for us, and for another person, they are no use to them. So it's very individual that I find what works for me and doesn't work for me, and then I try to manipulate myself into following that.
I've noticed for me, wheat. I'm very sensitive to wheat now. I mean, I probably was a little bit before, I don't know, but it was never really a thing. Um, And I find this whole business of staying away from wheat really difficult.
It is. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that, about the, yeah, help.
Sweet. The reasons, oh, blah. Okay. Oh, look, of course, my take on it is that everybody on the planet is allergic to wheat because we have kind of force fed it to ourselves for the last however many years, except maybe in Japan and those kind of Asian countries, because they are a lot more rice than wheat. And because of the way we've, oh, I could go in, okay, I'm not going to go into the politics of the way we grow wheat. Forget about that one. It's more that the effect on our body. There's some people that are really severely allergic to it. Absolutely. They're a whole different ballgame than the likes of you and I, who are, I would say, sensitivity. And I think that in all areas of my life, since my menopause, my sensitivity has heightened. It's kind of gone heightened, yes. Whereas before, it was like I could eat my croissant pain au raisin chocolate and have a coffee, probably even 2 coffees before 10 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't even think about it. With the menopause, I couldn't even eat a pain au raisin without feeling that in my tummy. And I'm still able to drink coffee, not with milk and not with sugar, but it's still, so it's like I've had to make adjustments, or I've chosen to make adjustments that I can see are beneficial for me because I don't want to feel bad. And some people maybe can't be bothered. It's not like there's no
Yeah.
rule. It's not
You're
like
going to tell me.
it's not like I can say to you, don't eat wheat. I mean, that is a big, tall order. Even because I've got a friend who's allergic to wheat, and she was here for lunch, and I was about to put some soy sauce, and she was like, stop, it's that wheat-free soy sauce. And I was like, oh my goodness. Another thing, I just presumed soy sauce was made with soya. And of course, all the other E's, F's, and G's, and one of them is a wheat derivative. So no soy sauce for her, except the right soy sauce, which is wheat-free. Not an easy thing to manipulate, no, maneuver through,
And
not easy at
also
all.
really expensive. I mean, it seems to me that wheat-free at the minute means just add double the price because,
I suspect, if you see, that's like trying to continue on eating like I was eating before. So I want my bread in the morning, and I want my toast, and I want my this, that, and the other. And it's like I want to continue on the way I was doing it before, except now I've removed wheat. So now I get gluten-free bread for breakfast, and I'm still doing it all the same. I don't know that is the way to go, because
yeah.
it is like trying to, I don't know, put a parallel railway line somewhere where you can't have 2 trains. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like,
Yeah.
for me, the holistic health stuff, sorry, Laura, is about not eating. It's not about not eating the bread. It's about choosing to have a bowl of, I don't know, squeeze an orange juice, put some chia seeds in, and put some oats in, and there you got your breakfast. And if you soak the chia seeds and the orange juice the night before with some goji berries or some barberries or something like that, you're going to have an even more substantial breakfast that will give you what you need for the day. And if you chop in a banana or a kiwi, great for other things, vitamin C, there's lots of qualities that you can get in your most powerful meal of the day is your breakfast. So rather than thinking I'm not going to eat bread, create something that is really enticing. Now, I'm no angel. It's not like I do this, particularly not for the past few months. And I was just saying to my husband this morning, need to get the smoothies back up and running, because he likes it more liquid, so he wants it in a smoothie. And then I can add a bit of protein powder. If you got pea powder is really good, or hemp is a really good one. And then so you're creating something to look forward to, rather than feeling that you're deprived of butter on toast and a bit of marmalade, love. I mean, come on. Yeah. And so if I do my great, breakfast for a week, and then I can have a bit of toast on Sunday, I don't know. There's no rule, because everyone's so individual. And we've all got our own way, and the way we deal with things, and the way we drive ourselves nuts and stress and do guilt and whatever. It's very individual.
I had a lot of questions there. As you were speaking, I wanted to be taking notes. Thingy berries and in orange juice and squeezed orange juice.
Yeah.
Um,
Orange is a really good price here now. And I was talking to my friend in England earlier, and she was telling me how she bought this big bag of oranges and she only needed 2. So she was squeezing the oranges and soaked the chia seeds in last night in the orange juice and put some goji berries as well. And she was just eating that while we were talking on the phone an hour ago. So good, it really, it's a bit more than an hour ago, but there's a way to make it work. And I do admit that it's not easy. It's like for me to think about having my natural yogurt with my goji, with my making a breakfast smoothie bowl or breakfast fruit bowl. And you want a bit of protein in there, and I'll often use a little bit of really nice tahini or peanut butter, or which is why I said protein powder, because the protein
because
will
I find
stave off.
the pea protein powder dominates anything I make.
How much are you putting in, love?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Okay, so that's my problem. I'm putting too much in.
I don't know.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
any of those things start with a quarter of a teaspoon. Just begin slowly, because
Oh, okay.
you see your body, if you think about it, the way we do food, we're getting back to the wheat question here. The way we do food is we are starved of lots of minerals, minute trace elements and minerals. So as a holistic chef, coming from putting variety in your diet. So coming from that point of view, I'm coming back to the point of making my, putting some protein in it. And if I put the protein powder or the green powder, which has got lots of anti-inflammatory properties, you start with a tiny amount, because your body is going to go, if you start with a tablespoon, your body's going to go, what is this? And you might not be able to digest it. I know with the green powder, if you put too much of that in, I tell people a quarter, a tiny bit the first day, because your body doesn't know what's happening and you want to kind of just adjust it slowly.
And your green powder, that's like spirulina. Is that what you mean? Or is that?
Well, spirulina is one. Mine is full of seagrass, seaweeds, anti-inflammatory plants, basically. So there's probably spinach in there. I mean, I can go and get the tub and read it to you. It's like, and again, I did my research to find a company that I trust. I trust the quality of the product, because I mean, actually I do it here myself. I'll go out to the garden and I'll pick some dandelion leaves and some other leaves of plants and stuff and put them in my smoothie, which is great. It's just that I want to do it a little, not a whole thing on Monday, because I'm starting out the week good with my New Year's resolutions or my new week resolution. And by Tuesday, I'm sick because my stomach is going, what in God's name did you just do? It's like people with raw food diets, nothing against it. But if we went completely raw for a while because of the people that were here and blah, blah, blah. And I have never felt so upset in my tummy. It's like, wow, why? So again, it's the same thing. This is how I hold it. Introduce a little. Have your raw carrot with your lunch day 1. Day 2, have 2 raw carrots or a raw carrot and a little bit of beetroot, grated beetroot, something to enhance what I'm already doing, not switch. Because if I switch, I'm never going to stick to it. It's about putting good habits in what I'm already doing.
Yeah, because actually that's one of the other questions when you were talking about it. Like Ayurvedic would talk about having warm food. They're not so in favor of the raw food, and that's the other problem, is everybody has an opinion. And it's like, geez. But for a warm breakfast, give us what would
there's loads. I mean,
be?
Basically, you can get your porridge with some fruit, and you got your warm breakfast. I mean, it's like cook your porridge. This is such a great one. I mean, and then there's loads. It's like you can do buckwheat banana pancakes. They're easy to. If I know what I'm looking for, then it's there. The information is there. I mean, I could have come up with a list of them. I don't actually have. I have got lots of pieces of paper in front of me, but not a list of warming breakfast foods. However, if somebody's interested, I mean, I'm so willing. And of course, I love talking about food. So, I'll happily come up with a list. Easy. It's just more, rather than feeling I'm depriving myself, I would personally advise a person, don't panic and add a little bit into your diet, because the more fruit and vegetables I add in, I want the bread and the potato or whatever that people, are allergic to or react to. It becomes less part of my diet. And I suspect that we're all allergic to gluten and to bread because we eat so much of it. That's it. And it's just like, go on.
No, I really like I like, well, I like your passion for food for starters. But I like the idea because say people vegan at the minute is very trendy, very popular, and there's lots of really good reasons for taking that as an approach. But the number of diabetic vegans now is skyrocketed. Whereas when I started with yoga, the vegans were always really, really slight and worried about being undernourished, as opposed to, it was just a whole different perspective because there wasn't vegan options of ready-made meals everywhere.
Mm,
So now there's vegan cakes, vegan sweets, vegan da da da. So people can now be vegan without, it's exactly how you described me and my wheat. Still wanted to keep my toast for breakfast, but
mm,
getting the gluten-free, still keeping the vegetarian sausages or the vegetarian, vegan chicken breast or whatever,
mm, mm.
which introduces all of these other chemicals, all this other whatever. And like I say, the biggest rise in diabetes are from vegans, which just blows my mind. Just
Wow.
blows my mind that you
Wow.
can be vegan and diabetic at the same time. Anyway,
Well, it
but
makes sense.
yeah, so this is why I really love your idea of not of getting passionate about introducing something different as opposed
Mm,
to trying to substitute the bread for the gluten-free bread.
mm,
And
mm.
the other thing that I really love is this idea of not being so anal about it and a little bit making the transition slowly as
Mm,
opposed to overnight. Because I know I tried that all the time and fail miserably
yes,
every
yeah.
time.
Well, and then I'll beat myself up. It's like, I'm not
Hmm.
interested in beating myself up anymore. Another thing I got from the
Hmm.
menopause, I'm very good at it and I have a very ingrained habit of it. And I just don't, it's like when I realize I'm doing it, oh, for God's sake, again, again. It's like, anyway, blah. One thing that came out of what you were just saying there, and I wrote it down, it's like, so you're talking about the vegan diabetics. So I'm just thinking about these poor people. Oh my God. So they go out there and they spend all this money on a pre-packed vegan lasagna, vegan, probably gluten-free lasagna. And I'm like,
Hmm.
how much chemical had to be
Hmm.
added to whatever, excuse my language, crap they have got in there in order for it to taste a little bit nice. So therefore, there is lots of sugar and salt and whatever else additives, vegan additives. And we think we're being smart or we think we're being healthy. I'm like, oh, it's phenomenal. I didn't even know about this whole vegan diabetic thing. I'm like, oh my, well, it fits. If I'm doing you're better off with a bit of bloody beef, love. At least if it's a burger or a steak, eat the blessed thing and enjoy it rather than, I'm sorry, the chemicals and those things. Oh, I
I
can't
have a
even think
friend.
about it.
I have a friend who is you'll know the name for them, whatever they make smells like a um perfumey type of person.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but the project she was working on was making the smell of cheese
Okay.
for frozen pizzas.
No, that's
Yeah, so
amazing.
that once you heat it, that you get that aroma of cheese. That was their, that's what they were
Wow.
working on. Like it's
Well, I've
amazing.
been fantasizing about that. What is it called? Cauliflower pizza thing. I'm like, the taste of that is so good. It has come back to me again. And you see, that's the whole thing of this. I call it umami, and people don't know what it means. And I don't know that I do. It's a Japanese word, and it just means a sense of satisfaction. So, what I aim to have, sorry, I'm getting fidgety here. What I aim to have in a meal or something, the food that I create, is a sense of satisfaction. So that I think, and actually another thing is I feel that every chef should be trained as a vegan a vegan holistic chef, and then you can cook anything because to get flavor and a sense of satisfaction out of a cabbage, for example,
Yes.
or a pumpkin, because I mean I had pumpkin soup at the neighbors 2 nights ago. No, last night, 2 nights ago, whenever it was recently, and the pumpkin was there and it was empty all around. It was like this emptiness. And I was like, okay. And so the neighbor came to visit me yesterday evening and I was saying, just thank you for the pumpkin soup. That's really great. And it was really sweet. And she said, yeah, but, and so she opened the space for me to say, and I said, well, you could have added one anchovy at the beginning when you were cooking your onion and cooking your garlic, which I don't know that she did, but anyway, and just one anchovy, and that will give a sense of umami for the whole soup. So it's very simple little things like that that I feel that I now know, and I have had to, I was going to say I've had to learn myself. Well, lean out, I suppose, reading books about it and practice, practice, practice. And I am passionate about it, as you well know. Um, it's anyway to get a sense of satisfaction. Like pumpkins goes really well with chestnuts. So I make a pumpkin soup and add in 3 chestnuts, and that gives you your protein and your satisfaction flavor, and you've got all the vegetables in your soup. It's very that there's simple things that can make your vegan gluten-free breakfast wonderful. Like, I don't know, a mushroom pancake, a buckwheat mushroom pancake, because the mushrooms, you got your umami and you got the sense of satisfaction, and then there's the filling part of the buckwheat. So there's a lot of I think it's called buckwheat in Ireland. There's a lot of things to
buckwheat,
play
yeah,
with
yeah.
in that. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So
interesting.
basically, we need to bring you over to do a cookery course. That's really the summary of it, is it? Because all you've done now is blow my head. Because that hollow taste that you talk about, I absolutely recognize it. And so often when I choose vegan or vegetarian options in restaurants, that's
It's not
exactly.
there.
And
Yeah,
soups just are
yeah.
like watery. They're watery as opposed to other soups are. Yeah.
Nourishing, exactly. So that's a sense of umami going on with it,
Hmm.
which a lot of
Hmm.
people get from soy sauce. Balsamic vinegar has a bit of it as well to your
Hmm.
salad, especially a nice balsamic, because I've got a few myself, and the nice one, that really hits the spot. I do notice with people who eat here, because as you know, there's a lot of traffic in our home here, and I notice when I make something, the vegetarian food I make. So if we're having 10 people over and there's one vegetarian, I will do a whole vegetarian dish, and I'd probably base the whole meal mostly on, in fact, the whole meal could even be just vegetarian. But what I do, the point I'm trying to make is that when I do a big meal here and I do the vegetarian option, and I have to make enough of it because everybody wants it, because the sense of umami means a moreness, shall we say, and for people whose bodies aren't getting those vitamins anyway, if they're doing white bread and whatever, peanut butter for their breakfast. Peanut butter is great. I'm not getting peanut butter. Good one though. Um, then if they taste something that tastes so satisfying, they just want more of it. It's like I can't stop eating it because my
Yeah.
body's going, yes, yes, yes. And it's so comforting, like chocolate. I'll tell you, me and Dairy Milk chocolate, they're a gift made in heaven. Even though I get all the glare, they call it in French, it's kind of like smudge inside my behind my chest area, like a bit of product of, I don't even know what the word is in English. It's not that I have a cough, but I'm going
Yeah,
phlegm.
you can
That's the
feel the
word,
phlegm. Yeah,
phlegm.
you can feel the build up,
Yeah,
the effect of it.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
sorry, I'm wittering on.
No, I mean, I think we need to somehow, because I could talk to you for hours. Um, so let's see if we can kind of do a real kind of quick review of what we've done.
Mm,
We basically talked a little bit about the whole idea of if of preparation for any kind of change in our lives. Menopause is one of the changes, and having the systems in place, those of self-care, recognizing the ones that we probably have in place that we don't even recognize, and maybe gratitude. There's a whole gratitude process in there, and even just in knowing what systems you have in place, what your friends are, what support you have, professionals and family and friends, that whole sort of network. Um, you talked a lot about then how when a massive bump came in the road, both the cancer and the menopause simultaneously, how that sense of being out of control took you down a rabbit hole of wanting to sort of source to have the information to be back in control. And this is sorry, you may have said lots of things, what I heard, because this is a mirror of what I do, trying to get this sense of control back again. And yet how somehow that in this case led to a situation where it actually induced more stress, because
mm,
the information that sometimes, and even just like, even if you just want to look at, I mean, taking something much more simpler than a cancer diagnosis, a wheat-free recipe for bread, like just this, sometimes this we talk about with kids, don't give them choice, but don't give them open choice. Take this or
mm,
this. Would you like to
mm,
wear the pink or red? top today.
Mm, mm,
So
mm,
knowing the effect it is on our nervous system when we go down rabbit holes where it's fear induced, where it's and where there's just so much choice and so much uncertainty. We
mm.
looked at the moon. I know this is completely random, but we looked to see, is there an atmosphere on the moon last night? And we got 3 answers. 2 said yes and 1 said no. I mean, surely this is a fact. There either is or there isn't, you know. So, but being aware of the effect on our nervous system and on our health and on our mood and everything when we take ourselves into that uncertainty and when we try to look for certainty where it's not possible.
Mm.
Um, uh, and there's so much that work we could do there. Then you talked about some very practical things, hot flushes, and you put your feet out of the covers. Whereas in my case, I keep my feet in the covers and take everything else off. But I actually put my cold feet up against my poor husband. And actually, we've got this electric blanket. He puts his on, and I don't put mine on. But I sneak my feet into his half where the blanket is on. So
Exactly.
I have everything off except my feet. So again, it's exactly what you're saying. This trying, experimenting, and finding what works. And what I really like that you said the last time actually is that the fact that it works for this 6 weeks doesn't mean it's going to be a permanent thing.
That's it. Exactly.
It might
The
stop
whole
working.
sleep thing. I mean, my goodness, we could do a whole podcast just on the sleep thing and what I've discovered about myself for sleep and how it works today. And then tomorrow, it's like bing. And anyway, and then don't go crazy about that because eventually, you know, after 2 or 3 days, I'll have a good night's sleep. So yes, there's so many rabbit holes to go down there.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Looked at a little bit about joint pain and about stiffness and about all that kind of thing that happens in our body when it starts to and the the fantastic sensitivity that comes up, that we suddenly become much more conscious of all of the effects, because I personally think those effects were there, just we didn't notice them before.
Correct.
So I love the fact that if I eat a slice of bread, I know, oh my God, I've eaten a slice of bread. So even though it's a pain in the butt, I really love the fact that I now am aware of it, because I'm sure I was doing that before. So like, anyway. We talked about making dietary changes to support that and how to do that, how to make little changes rather than massive big changes, how to introduce little things at a time, and little amounts. And I love that quarter of a quarter of a quarter, you know, just tiny
And sauerkraut
changes.
is a really good balancing and anti-inflammatory thing. I mean, I make my own sauerkraut here, and I do not have the habit at the moment of putting it on the table, so that then anytime I'm eating, have a tablespoon of sauerkraut. You know, in making your own, it's so easy to make. I mean, we can do that when you organize the cookery school at your house.
So
fly me over, baby, and I'll come and I'll do a cookery class. And it would be little simple things like that. And I would not even go with a gluten-free bread. I would go with a Swedish grain bread and do it's like just change the whole thing. It's like do the Swedish grain bread and just keep away. It's not that I'm giving up gluten. It's that I'm not interested anymore. It's like I'm trying it a different way. I'm doing it a different way. Anyway, yes, I interrupted.
I have eaten that bread. That is gorgeous.
Yeah, I've made another one since.
That is gorgeous.
It's a nut loaf. It's called a nut loaf, a Swedish nut loaf. And I made another one actually this weekend, and it's all gone. And if there's tiny bits left, I put it into the bottom of the salad. I put it on a pan, toasted it a bit, and it was like croutons in a salad. And I'm like, can it get any better? You know, anyway, do love cooking.
The thing about not, rather than trying to reproduce the same track with the gluten-free or with the whatever free, to actually find food you're passionate about, and that passion that we see in Dolores is available to all of us about our food, about our breakfast. And even if we just start with our breakfast, that's what I'm kind of taking away from this. I'm like motivated to go and find a new breakfast for myself, or 2 versions of a breakfast for myself. That I'm excited about, because
those banana pancakes are really good. And then you put a bit of fruit on the top and a bit of maple syrup and buckwheat and banana. I think that's it.
Buckwheat and banana.
Buckwheat, banana. I think that's it. I personally would put a tiny bit of vanilla in it, something to give it, because the banana is sugary enough. Blah blah blah. It's yeah.
Okay. And umami for everything.
That's it. And that's the thing, though. That is a hard thing to teach over a podcast, because it's about a building. For me, if I'm making a stew, vegetarian, vegan, whichever way I'm going, curry, they're all the same. I start with my base, which is pretty much always onion, and if I have leeks, some leek, and a tiny bit of garlic, but some people don't like it, so not too much, and cook them in the pan, and then build. I'm building, so I'm building up a flavor. So that would be when I would put in the anchovy, break it up, or 2 or 3, depending, and then you don't need to add salt because the anchovy preserved in salt, so you can either wash it and take the salt off, or use it as it is, and then you've got kind of a natural salt, or a better salt, because it's the salt on the anchovy. Of course, you need good quality anchovies, and then that is building this umami for your soup, stew, stock, whatever it is. That's one way of doing it. That's one sample.
Can I just say, for anybody who is like, oh, yeah, that's fantastic, except anchovies, I hate them.
Yeah, don't
I'm
taste
with you
them.
on that, but exactly, you don't taste them, and I will
No,
guarantee you don't
go
taste
for
them.
a quarter of a quarter of a quarter to begin with. If you don't trust me, but why would you trust me? You don't know me, but anyway, tiny bit to begin with. You will not, it's not that it's noticeable in the finished product. I mean, you could use mushrooms as well. You could get some mushrooms and put them in your pan, because they're going to give that umami flavor, that umami feeling, let's say, rather than flavor. But you'll have to cook them quite well. And in fact, I'll probably cook them on a separate pan and then add them to my onion garlic base when I was making up if I'm going for beef bourguignon or whatever I'm going to make. It could be soup. It's all the same basic
Base.
building blocks.
Base.
Yeah.
Cool. Listen, lads, if you're interested in more about actually layers and cooking and stuff like that, let me know, because I spent 2 days with Dolores just learning how to cook mushrooms. I swear to God, nothing but mushrooms. And people knows. They notice, My kids will say nobody, it does make a difference. But anyway, I'm conscious that we need to let everybody go.
Thank you.
And I so much appreciate it, Dolores. I really appreciate your willingness to share your experience, because while everybody's experience is different, the more people are willing to talk about theirs. And I just love your passion about food, and I love how unprescriptive. So if you joined this podcast thinking you were going to get a load of do's and don'ts on it, I'm sorry, we've now come to the end of the podcast and there wasn't a single do and don't in it. So I apologize.
Don't panic. I would say don't panic.
There you go. There's a don't. Don't panic. But yeah, let us know how you get on, and have some great fun making your own really, really tasty recipes. And
Great,
share
and
them with
maybe
us if
share
something
them,
that you find that
please.
works. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm open to answer any questions you like. Thank you, darling.
Brilliant. And we'll add a few of the links to recipes that Dolores uses on to the notes.
Thank you, darling.
Until next time.
God bless. Bye bye.